Okay, boys and girls, I'm doing another breakdown of spells this week with the video I've kind of wanted to make for some time. Today, I want to look at the bonus action, which for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition characters that utilize it to its full potential, you already understand just how powerful the bonus action can be. When you combine that with a bit of D&D magic, those little bonus actions can be the difference between a TPK or an overwhelming victory. But not all bonus actions are equal, and that's why I spent some time going over the entire list of the 42 official bonus action spells printed in 5e, and I've narrowed down the very best to these top 10. As always, you can consider my list as 100% the gospel and not subjective at all. First, a few spells that were close, but ultimately just outside the top 10 here. We have some honorable mentions to Hunter's Mark. This was a spell that really deserves to make it in, particularly with the argument of how valuable this spell is to the Ranger, who doesn't exactly have a ton of options to use those spell slots on anyway. Banishing Smite. Name smites kind of suck compared to the just extra damage you get from a plain one. I mean, a plain smite on a crit is just so much damage that it is usually just better against literally anything from beholders to dragons to demon lords. But Banishing Smite is actually a pretty decent little cover your ass effect that in some campaigns might be more useful than just more damage. Hail of Thorns, Holy Weapon, and Grasping Vines are the final runners up. Good spells, probably underrated by many of us, but not good enough to make it into the top 10. I had to cut something, right? And so that brings us to our first top 10 bonus action spell, Ashardalon's Stride from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. If you've played probably any amount of video games ever, this is basically a firewalk spell that burns up your foes. It increases your speed, has no save for the damage, and you do not provoke any attacks of opportunity. I probably included this spell on this list because it's just so much fun, but it does have to compete with a traditional fireball spell, right? So we should remember that. What I like about it is the flexibility. You can move a sork or wizard out of a dangerous corner while providing damage and still allowing them to cast a cantrip. They can repeat this for possibly 10 turns if they needed, and a ranger could use this to help them give the paladin a flank and still attack. And of course, you can be more specific with the damage than throwing a huge fireball at the entire party in those tighter corners. Overall, one of the better bonus action spells in the game of D&D 5e, and it is particularly rewarding to clever players who don't enjoy just standing still in 5e, and I love that, so there it is. All right, coming in at number 9, we have the Paladin Classic Compelled Duel. This is such a great spell, and it can completely shift the balance of combat for parties who may have more than one melee striker. It's only a level 1 spell slot. You still get to attack. You don't need to carry a focus as it's a verbal only spell, and it forces a wisdom saving throw, something that other melee types often are a little bit more susceptible to. Being able to impose disadvantage on all attacks against the entire party but you is the most MMO tank mechanic we've seen in D&D, and it's very, very effective. If you're playing a paladin, this isn't a must take per se, but you should really give it a look. This spell is magnificent. Moving on to number 8, we have one of the most efficient spells in all of D&D with Spiritual Weapon. This spell is just so powerful at lower levels in particular. It easily stacks up against any level 1 cleric spell regardless of casting time, and it's probably a top 6 or 7 level 1 spell among all classes. What makes it so good is that it doesn't require concentration. Even if you get pummeled and would normally be making those concentration checks to keep your spell going, it doesn't matter. This thing just keeps on ticking and stacking up that extra bit of damage. Additionally, the value to clerics specifically is high, as they aren't a class that leans heavily on the bonus action. There may be very few things better to do as a sub level 8 wizard or cleric, than to open with a spiritual weapon and then Sacred Flame on turn 1. But, speaking of which, coming in at number 7, just slightly ahead of Spiritual Weapon, is Shield of Faith, another level 1 bonus action spell for the Cleric and the Paladin. Of everything on this list, This might be the most underrated spell in the top 10. In Dungeons & Dragons 5e, it's very difficult to create stacking AC bonuses. Most spells and effects are a one or the other, like the Turtle Shell, Mage Armor, or a Monk's Unarmored Defense, but Shield of Faith does exactly that, and it helps you take your melee ally to an entirely different level in being able to frustrate and nullify damage from incoming attackers. And don't think just because it's concentration that paladins can't make excellent use of this spell either. A brand new paladin right off the shelf may start the game with both a shield and a chainmail for a whopping 18 AC right out of the gate. With the help of a cleric, you're looking at a 20 AC at level 1, with the paladin picking up the ability to cast this on themselves as soon as level 2. If that paladin takes a tiny dip into either fellow charisma classes, the Sork or the Warlock, to grab the level 1 reaction shield spell, and you can start to see where this spell helps things really snowball out of control. Or of course, they could just spend their gold on a plate mail and have a 22 AC by default with Shield of Faith. So yeah, very abusable, very good, very underrated, definitely one of the best bonus action spells in the game, with a cost of just a lowly first level spell slot. That's it. Number 6 is my personal favorite on our list today, with the level 5 ranger only spell, Swift Quiver. Okay, so here's the skinny. This spell is definitely niche, okay? Immensely so. However, it is so powerful, you can design an entire character around using it. In fact, that is exactly what I did in my Arcane Archer build video, which if you haven't seen it, is probably one of the strongest characters for just raw damage output in all of D&D 5e. Link in the comment section, of course, if you want to go check that out. This spell, in essence, turns your character into a Gatling gun, and being able to spit out 4 arrows every 6 seconds is strong in no uncertain terms. The math gets even more fun when you start adding in magic weapons, crits, and teammate support like haste. The only problem with this spell, it's so good, the game designers decided that the ranger should only be able to have access to this at level 15 before they can even use it. So that's how good it is. However, when paired with the Valor Bard, who gets to steal spells from the ranger's list, the bard accesses this spell a full 5 levels earlier than the ranger does. So yes, while niche, there is no argument that it is in fact easily one of the strongest bonus action spells, and that is why it made the list. If the spell was more accessible, it might have even been a top 3. Number 5, moving into the top half of our list, we have Blade of Disaster, a level 9 spell from the Rime of the Frost Maiden. Is this a spell many people have even seen used in a game before? Of course not. It's a level 9 spell, and why take anything other than wish if you can? But does that mean it deserves to be ignored? Absolutely not, because I included this spell at number 5 because it's just plain fun. Players play D&D to have fun, and it's fun to cast big powerful spells that do a lot of damage, and Blade of Disaster checks all the boxes. You get to make 2 attacks when casting it, and every turn you manage to keep concentrating on it. It triples the crit range to a whopping 18, 19, or 20, and when it does crit, that also triples the damage to an amazing 12d12 force damage. Oh, and did I mention that it effortlessly glides right through a wall of force? Because it does. It moves through a wall of force like a knife through hot butter. Or wait, a hot knife through butter. You know what I'm trying to say. It just glides right in there. It's the grown-up big boy and girl version spiritual weapon, and it's downright awesome. If I got to play an epic level 1-shot tomorrow, this would be the first spell I would take. I'm just saying. Moving up to number 4, we have the level 1 spell, Sanctuary. Man, it seems like clerics are getting a lot of love today, but it is what it is. And yes, I know artificers and a few other classes can also snag this spell. No concentration, no save against the initial effect. You can choose an ally and basically lock them away from being easily targeted by anyone trying to hurt them. Sanctuary forces wisdom saves for every single attack against them, whether traditional sword and claw attacks or even spells. All right, the downside makes this spell seem more useless at first glance, where it dissipates if your ally actually attacks or deals damage, but those conditions are worded very specifically and are easy to work around for clever players. For example, warding a sorcerer who has twin spelled haste and follows that up with a blindness deafness spell is a very effective target for this. And warding the right target at the right time can also pay huge dividends by preventing a paladin tank from taking 5 attacks from a Hydra with the rest of the party out of range by the monster to switch to, or to even prevent 5 to 6 enemies from killing a down player until a few are eliminated and have a bigger wave of healing that can be applied to your allies. Sanctuary has a fantastically low cost and a massive upside that awards smart players when the right situation is there for them to use it. And when used in those sweet spots during those tight situations, the payoff is huge. And now down to our top 3 spells. All 3 of these spells are the creme de la creme, and any one of these spells could have a great argument for being crowned the best of the best. But as I have to rank them, coming in at number 3 is the level 2 spell, Misty Step. I'm not sure there's another spell in the game with a short, complete description of what it does with just 18 words in total. Briefly surrounded by silvery mist, you teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Instantaneous, 1 bonus action, verbal only, powerful. The straight up flexibility of Misty Step is what makes it so damn good. Surrounded? Misty Step. Need to get on the roof? Misty Step. Imprisoned? Misty Step. Need to run away fast? Dash and then Misty Step. Need to reposition the battlefield completely? Misty Step. I'm a big fan of this spell because it's not just a do more damage and win combat spell, but it has so many more uses that, again, reward clever players, something I will always advocate for. In fact, I'm such a big fan of this effect, I designed an entire class with a similar effect called the Mistwalker, which is a platinum bestseller on DriveThruRPG. And yes, it's an entire class, not just a fighter or wizard subclass. If you want to check it out, I think it goes for something like, I don't know, ridiculous, $3.99 or something. And yes, I'm very proud of how great it actually turned out to be. Hashtag shameless plug. Misty Step on its own doesn't do anything to break the game. And that's why I think it's designed so well. It's a balanced spell, but one that can change everything in the game in the blink of an eye in those right situations. Misty Step is just great, easily a top 3 spell for today's list. And now for our runner-up, we have Healing Word. Yes, you guys knew this was going to be on here somewhere, and I'm betting many of you are surprised it didn't take the number 1 spot. I mean, I had to mix it up a little bit and not be that predictable, right? If you understand math, and you know your death and dying mechanics inside and out and how to use those in the turn tracker to your advantage, you already know why this spell is practically broken. Using this spell on a downed ally is simply a get out of jail free card. The fact that it is a simple level 1 spell slot, so the higher up the party gets, the more easily this is cast, and also why I chose to include Healing Word over Healing Spirit. Healing Spirit can only be cast by rangers who have a slow spell progression and really value their limited spell slots more, and druids who may want to spend their concentration on something else. But Healing Word is just too flexible and good, and flexible and good, and it's really good. Oh, and it's really flexible, of course. I could go on, but let's just agree that it's busted and move on to our number 1 spell. Coming in officially guys, as the single best bonus action spell in all of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is Hex. On the surface, it might seem like Hex and Hunter's Mark are practically the same spell. They aren't. Is Hex as good a good way to increase your damage output on a large single target enemy? Yes, okay, of course it is, particularly in the lower levels of the game. But where Hex really shines is that it has no save, and when you Hex somebody, you automatically grant them disadvantage on all ability checks of that chosen type. Want to make it so that a target can't athletics check their way out of a grapple? Hex their strength. Want to make sure the party gets the drop on an enemy? Stand up to 90 feet away, hidden, and Hex their dexterity and give the big scary monster disadvantage on their initiative roll. A surprise ambush against the dragon with Hex Could mean round 1, 5 players jump out and attack the dragon. At the end of the dragon's turn, they lose surprise as a condition. Round 2, 5 players attack. And then the dragon finally gets to go if it still lives. By the dragon's turn on round 3, it might have gotten off a single attack or tried to fly away, having to take 15 attacks already. This is all theory crafting, of course, but with disadvantage on that initiative roll, it's not that unfeasible. Need to lie to a guard. Give him disadvantage on insight checks. Need to hide from a dragon instead of fighting them? Give them disadvantage on wisdom perception checks. Want to keep a bugbear patrol from seeing through your minor illusion bush? Yep. Hex them and give them disadvantage on intelligence investigation checks. I know that's a weird one, right? You would think that minor illusion would be a save, but it is in fact an investigation check. All of this with exactly 0 saving throws. Hex just happens. And nowhere on the spell does it say that the target can even become aware that they are in fact hexed. Hex isn't a charm. And with the amount of flexibility, and once again, the ability to reward smart players, get the theme, Hex takes the crown as the most powerful spell in D&D that you can cast with your bonus action. All right, so now I want to hand it off to you guys in the community. What got left off this list? What got rated too high on this list? Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't know. What do you want from me? I'm trying to engage you, okay? That's what the argument section is for. Just argue and call me names and stuff, I guess. I don't know. I, of course, want to give a massive thank you to all of my incredible patrons over at welcomeadventures.com. Guys, thank you so much. It's because of you that I get to keep doing this, and so for that, I'm just incredibly grateful. If you guys like what I do here, you want to snag some rewards for yourself, like maybe hopping in a one-on-one meeting with me, welcomeadventures.com is a great place to do that and support the channel. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. I put out videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more stuff like this, so if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit the subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.